again.
So perfect. So then, Mohita, just clarifying, I'll introduce Dr. Bayanda, and then we'll start.
Yeah. We are live.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome everyone to Women Ophthalmologists Worldwide, partnership with Ophthalmological Society of South Africa, to our first inaugural WOW, Women Ophthalmologists Worldwide Zonal webinar for Africa. A dialogue to discuss opportunities for female ophthalmologists globally for education, research, leadership, and network. I'm Famita Karani. I'm an ophthalmologist based in Vancouver, and I'm one of the founders of WOW. I'm so excited and pleased to have you all here. I would like to introduce Dr. Bayanda Mambisa from South Africa. Dr. Bayanda is the president of the Ophthalmological Society of South Africa, the founder of the OSSA Young Ophthalmologists Group, the acting head of the clinical unit at Livingstone Hospital, and works as a general ophthalmologist at Port Elizabeth Provincial Hospital. Dr. Bayanda is a senior lecturer at Walter Sisulu University and focuses on anterior segment, cornea, and community ophthalmology. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Bayanda. Thank you all for participating today and joining our WOW excitement.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Femida. And I'll reiterate, good evening, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're dialing from in the world. And we're so excited to have you join with us. Also, I was really proud to partner with Women Ophthalmologists Worldwide for our first Africa Zonal webinar. And we hope this will create and strengthen partnerships between female ophthalmologists in Africa, as well as in the other parts of the world. So recently we had an introductory meeting with Dr. Mohita Sharma and Dr. Swati Tomar from WOW, and they share their vision with us. And I'm sure Dr. Sharma and Dr. Karani will share this in a little bit. But after that meeting, as the awesome members who were there, we really felt that this would be a great platform for Africa, particularly to assist us in building partnerships with our sisters in other parts of the world. And as we all know, women are underrepresented in surgical disciplines, and I'm sure in particular in Africa. So platforms like this are important in not only supporting each other as women, but also in encouraging and nurturing a new generation of female ophthalmologists. And, you know, networking has become an important part of professional life. And I often think of it as a concept for the business world. But building relationships with people in our field can assist us in growing our own professional lives, as well as enriching us personally. And the complex is not really as complicated as we may make it, because it's essentially an exchange of information and ideas among like-minded people who share something in common. And for us, it would be our profession and our agenda. So this afternoon, as we look forward to our two sessions, Our first session will be looking at the current situation for women in ophthalmology, what opportunities there are now, and hopefully going forward. And the second half of our meeting will be having a panel discussion, which I'm sure will open the door for further constructive engagement. I'd like to, for the speakers of our first session, I'd like to have a special mention to Dr. Erin Shriver, past president of Women in Ophthalmology in the US, who tells us that it was actually Thanksgiving weekend. So thank you to you and your family for allowing them to sneak out so early in the morning. And also to Dr. Imani Tarib. She's also in the US, but originally from Morocco. And she's involved in so many different ophthalmology bodies throughout the world. And she was so excited to hear about this meeting in her native continent and agreed at very short notice to be one of our speakers. So thank you to the two of you. I'd also like to thank you, our other speakers for this first session, which we will introduce as before they speak, but in particularly Dr. Nonhlanhla Majola from South Africa, Dr. Faith Vatamasila from Kenya, Professor Patricia Wade from Nigeria, and Dr. Zifabella Oforia-J from Ghana. We're really looking forward to what you're going to be all sharing with us later. And so I'd like to now officially open this meeting, and we're looking to having an engaging time with you. I'd like to hand over to our first speaker of session one, and that is Dr. Femida. Is it Dr. Femida or Dr. Moita Sharma?
I'm going to start. Yes, I'll start. Yeah, thank you. So thank you, Dr. Bayanda, and thank you all, the international ophthalmology community, for joining us in this wonderful inaugural meeting. As I mentioned, I'm based in Vancouver. I'm an oculoplastic surgeon at University of British Columbia, and I also do outreach work at University of Calgary. I was the founder of the Women in Ophthalmology Canada chapter, and I just finished being a president of the Canadian Society of Oculoplastic Surgery, and I'm still on the executive committee. So I have also participated on the board for women ophthalmology in the US for the last half a decade, I feel. So it's been really lovely, and I've had a lot of interactions with a lot of people here in various American Academy of Ophthalmology meetings and ASOPers meetings. So wow. What is WOW? WOW actually for us grew out of a collaboration of women in ophthalmology. And Women in Ophthalmology is, as I mentioned, a nonprofit based in the US. And that was actually Susan McDonald who introduced me to Women in Ophthalmology as a fellow. And the mission for Women in Ophthalmology is to, of course, enhance and improve the professional environment for women ophthalmologists. And WIO, Women in Ophthalmology, encourages diversity, impartiality, economic parity, and strives to cultivate new opportunities for leadership, education, service in the field of ophthalmology for ourselves and future. So we are all in line and aligned together in this mission. And I want to just share some statistics from the American Academy of Ophthalmology. So about 34% of practicing physicians in the US are women. And that's a little higher than in Canada. And approximately 24% of American Academy members are women. However, 50% of ophthalmology residents are women. So it is lower, of course, than obstetrics and gynecology and pediatrics here in North America, but it is definitely coming up. So we are getting a lot of new women in our pipeline. So Women in Ophthalmology, why us? Because we are thought leaders. We are building a community. We are talking about leadership and action. And we are building value beyond the national meetings with our own meetings. We provide resources and networking opportunities. It is a free membership, just as WOW is, for online resources and provides information for posters, complicated cases, and it allows us to collaborate with our peers. So just to highlight women in ophthalmology in 2021, about 1,000 members. There's a mentorship program. We had a recent meeting at Amelia Island in Florida, and we had world webinar series with speakers from 8 countries. There's also an exciting clinical trials program where we can collaborate, and there's excellent educational opportunities in the upcoming. So I want to give credit to our amazing board of directors. And as you can see from this, Dr. Erin Shriver and Dr. Sarah Wester are partners in crime with me, and really are great supporters for the mission of women ophthalmologists worldwide, everywhere. So Women Ophthalmologists Worldwide, we came together actually at this meeting in India, that Dr. Sharma, Dr. Swati Tomar, Dr. Ava Hussain, Dr. Maya Hada, and Dr. Eli Pradhan was there, Dr. Arthi was there, and Dr. Indira was there. And we were all together when we realized that we all really had the same idea in mind, to bring the women together, because as Dr. Bayanda mentioned earlier, together we all achieve more. And it is really an opportunity for us to collaborate as a community, an international global community, and outreach and work together to strengthen our sister organizations. We are sisters together in Women in Ophthalmology in WOW. And by working together, we can strengthen leadership structures. We can bring attention to diversity, equity, inclusion, and we can actually share ideas that we're all individually working on in our own countries. And by sharing those ideas, we will bring everyone forward. So I think that that's really our mission. We have goals to have quarterly webinars by the region. We would like to strive to encourage exchange programs, surgical observerships, fellowships. I've already had people reaching out to me from Brazil and Chile, and it's literally just by opening up these networks in the last year, people have been reaching out. We are actively working on collaborative and combined surveys. I'm working with Dr. Rebecca Ford, Dr. Maria Musaji, Dr. Mohita on some surveys. There's some combined activities. We are doing courses internationally. And one day we hope, we understand that this is all very, very ambitious. We believe there will be a journal, newsletter, or a blog that will evolve. And I know this sounds very ambitious, but I think that together we can achieve it. So everyone can be a member of WOW. We do not want cost or anything to be an obstacle. Membership is free. We will support it. We want to support all of our residents. We want students that are interested in ophthalmology to be keen to be welcome in this. And the reason is that we know that women surgeons have greater obstacles to achieve their highest achievements, right? To achieve their success in their mind. So if we can support along this long ride up, along this long ladder up, then we will achieve. And we know that, you know, this is actually one of the pictures from the surgeons from India, that the gender ratios are low. And it varies country by country. And this is one of the studies that we're interested in looking at. And I can comment that even in this paper from Africa, it highlights that there is a need to support the women. This also shows that there is a need to support women in authorship in ophthalmology. So this is our Canadian Ophthalmology Society in 2019. And in our Canadian data, we can see that ophthalmology women are among about less than 30%, basically 28%. And we know that the number of ophthalmologists in Canada is going down, but the number of women for sure is going up. And the number of women are actually in the younger regions, the younger group. So Canadian Ophthalmology in Profile shows that we're, less than 1/3, but growing. And that is the key, is that when we're fewer in number, how do we collaborate? How do we work together? And we know that for Canadians, we know that by working with our American colleagues, we have really seen a lot of opportunities in strengthening and collaborating. So David Park, our CEO of the American Academy, also mentions here that although fully half of ophthalmology residents are women, we need to actually support women in leadership, because women in leadership is lower. So although we are growing in numbers, how do we get more women on boards? How do we get more women participating in clinical trials? How do we get more women doing more talks all over and have more podium time, publish more papers? So I would love to encourage you all to join WOW and support our mission to not just collaborate, but raise the bar for ophthalmology worldwide. And because together we achieve more, and always in difficult times, we understand the challenges and we might have an opportunity to grow. So with COVID, this is our chance to collaborate more. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Famida Karani. Thank you for sharing, giving us a brief overview of WOW and of women in ophthalmology, and also just sharing your vision and all the work that you've done so far and plan to still do in the future. And we hope we can be a part of it, all of us here. I would like to just extend a warm welcome to everybody that's joined us today. And just to introduce the next speaker, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Mohita Sharma, who, when she approached me, and in fact, we were connected by Dr. Imani Tarib, when she pitched, this idea of WOW to me, I immediately, without hesitating, jumped on it and shared the idea with my fellow, female ophthalmologists, South African ophthalmologists. And this is where we are today. So Dr. Mohita Sharma, you have the floor.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Majula. I'm very happy and very excited also to be here today. And this is the first zonal webinar, and to be having it in Africa is a great honor for us, for our whole society also. And to see such an exciting lot of women ophthalmologists, and we are very happy to see that there are women ophthalmologists from different parts of Africa, because we feel that though challenges may be similar, but there may be some regional differences, and that's the whole purpose of this webinar, to come out with those differences, regional differences, so that we can plan our work accordingly together. So as I said, women ophthalmologists have challenges, professional challenges, which are universal. They are unique challenges, but they are common to all. And this is basically because the traditional definition for success for women, any woman, is personal first and professional second, which results in what is called a leaky pipeline. We all start with doing very well in our professional careers, but down the line, some of us are not able to perform as per what their potential is. And this results in what Dr. Famida was talking about, underrepresentation in leadership positions, in academics as first authors, as chairs in sessions, as heads of department, and sometimes some of us are not paid what we deserve. So the whole idea is to come on a common platform where we can share our challenges, learn from successful women, find mentors and role models, and find opportunities for professional growth. So when we were looking at organizations which had women ophthalmologists, we found a few. We found that there is a very strong organization called WIO, which Famida just talked about in US. Then there is an organization in UK called Women in Vision, which works a lot on research. Dr. Maria Musaji is one of the founders. There's Asia Pacific Academy of Ophthalmology has a women's standing committee, women ophthalmologists. Dr. Awa Hussain Madam is the force behind it. Then there is one in Australia. Then in India, we have Women Ophthalmologist Society, which was supported by WIO, and that's how we got started. And there are a few more. But we found that everybody is working in isolation. And whenever anybody tries to form an organization in any country, we started getting a lot of women ophthalmologists from different countries who started asking us how to form such organizations. But whenever you start thinking of such an organization, then these are the words which you get to hear. Is it a gender divide? Is it a women's lib? Is it that these organizations are anti-men? And sometimes successful women are also opposing such organizations. So we thought if there is an umbrella organization, now that umbrella organization could be one which could actually help form such organizations and connect them also. So that is when WOW was formed. And Dr. Fahmida already talked about the first working committee meeting, which happened in 2019, where this idea was generated. And after that, this was launched in 2020. That was the formal launch. And this was a virtual launch because those were all COVID times. So we got a good opportunity to meet virtually and launch in 2020. And this is the main mission of WOW. It is committed to enhancing equity in education, research, collaboration, and leadership opportunities for women ophthalmologists globally. And it supports equality in access to eye care for all. So the main idea was initiation of new women ophthalmologists organizations in different countries where they wish to form this, strengthening of already existing women's organization, to bring about collaborations between women's network and to make their resources available to everybody. Dr. Erin will just talk about a few minutes later about the resources that are available already, to bring about a networking among women ophthalmologists so that they're no longer in isolation, and to exchange knowledge and skills to promote leadership, and of course, to bring about that sisterhood feeling, which is very, very important. So the idea was to connect women ophthalmologists all across the globe on a common platform for professional upgradation. So the activities, some of them have started, some of them are being planned to start. Already Dr. Fahmida has talked about, and this was the first introductory webinar where we again discussed these activities and came out with new things. And just giving you some examples of opportunities. For example, WIO was the one who supported the women's organization in India, and that is why it could be formed. Again, in Pakistan, there is a women's organization supported, which was again supported by WIO. In our Indian Women Ophthalmologist Society of India, recently we decided to publish a journal, and that was a special issue of a index journal, and we thought let's involve women ophthalmologists from all over the world. So we are very fortunate. There are some good review articles coming from our sister women ophthalmologists. Then Women in Vision UK offers research opportunities to members of WOW. Then as a speaker panel, wherever the WOW activities are happening, it's not just that it is limited to one country. Anybody can participate, would contribute to that. Similarly, we want that Africa should also get involved, and we can probably, my suggestion is we can start with some collaborative surveys, and these surveys could be, the beginning of these surveys could be the discussions that we are having today. For example, we have a panel discussion on needs and ways to improve the surgical cells, and that could be our first survey. That's one of my suggestions. So this is how we will all get connected together. So if we talk of Africa, we already nominations were sent for Dr. Bejola as a country rep from South Africa, and Dr. Faith as a country rep from Kenya, and we would want country reps from other countries, and we would request Dr. Bayanda for an affiliation of OSA, which can with WOW, which can actually bring about a lot of good changes. So this is the Facebook page of WOW. As Dr. Fahmida just said, anybody can become a member of WOW. It just has, your criteria is only that you should be a woman ophthalmologist, and you can be of any country, and the membership is free for now. The membership is available online on this website of WOW, which you can go to. You can see the activities, and you can become a member today. So I end by saying, join us at WOW, and let's make a great collaboration together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Sharma. And I hope everybody is already taking notes and looking forward to what WOW can assist us in our own particular countries. So the next few speakers are going to be giving us a bit of an idea of what is happening in terms of women in ophthalmology in their individual countries. And our first speaker is Dr. Nonhlanhla Majola, who is a local ophthalmologist. She's a general ophthalmologist with a special interest in oculoplastic surgery. She is based in Durban, South Africa, which is on the coast and it's always warm year-round. She runs a private practice there. She completed her undergraduate medical training at Stellenbosch University in 2007 and later joined the ophthalmology department at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in 2013 to start her ophthalmology specialist training. She became a fellow of the Colleges of Medicine of South Africa in 2016. She holds a diploma in ophthalmology as well as a master's of medicine from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. She was previously on the Ophthalmological Society of South Africa Young Ophthalmologist Committee. She's an African Ophthalmology Council Leadership Development Program graduate, or the LDP for those of you who know it and have done it. And she is a current ASA Executive Board member. She's passionate about leadership development and advocacy, especially amongst young ophthalmologists. She is married and has a sausage dog named Kwezi. Over to you, Dr. Majola.
Hello, hi, thank you, Dr. Bambisa. I want to tell you all that it's actually a bright and sunny day in Durban, and I'm going to the beach straight after this session when we are done. So yes, as Bayanda said, my name is Dr. Nonhlanhla Majola, and I'd like to greet you all. And it's a pleasure really to welcome you all to this very groundbreaking webinar. So today I'm going to be giving you a brief perspective of female ophthalmologists from South Africa. Sure, it's not, sorry about that. Yes. So women in South Africa are known for their resilience, their fighting spirit, and for being trailblazers. They have always been at the forefront of fighting for not only for women's rights, but also for all human rights. And their involvement in the liberation struggle is well known and documented. Despite the battles for women's rights and gender equality over the years, we still live in a predominantly male-dominated world, with women in most professional sectors, like in medicine, often being lone figures, more so the higher up the professional ladder you go. Despite, over and above being outnumbered and overshadowed in the workspace, most professional women, share a very unique lived experience and face multiple challenges, such as balancing, family and work. We all know that women face limited access to education and advancement of their career opportunities. They often face wage discrepancies. They struggle with issues of safety, not just in the workplace, but in their homes and their communities. They also have to contend with gender bias and mental health issues that come from all these things. The good news, though, is that, despite all the challenges, the tide does seem to be gradually turning in our favor. For one thing, we are witnessing a consistent rise in women in the world of medicine worldwide and in ophthalmology, as seen in Iran and the US. And I think Dr. Famida alluded to this, the increase in numbers of female ophthalmologists. In South Africa, we are seeing the same trends, really. There have been a steady increase in the number of female ophthalmology residents, or registrars, as we call them here. And I cite again, as Dr. Famida did, Dr. Dean's research showing the increased number rise in number of ophthalmologists in training. The numbers also look good in our country in terms of the overall representation amongst qualified ophthalmologists, with about 44% of all ophthalmologists in the country being female. Sorry. So when it comes to how we are led as a profession in the country, it's also been quite promising. The Ophthalmological Society of South Africa, which is our professional governing body, has made a strong commitment to gender equality, and have done so not only in words, but also in deeds. I am very proud to inform you that our last few presidents of our society have been female. So in terms of leadership, we are well led. And the composition also of our executive board, we have 5 out of 11 board members that are female. So there's been quite a deliberate effort to diversify the board along gender and racial lines. And they show their support always and participate in projects and initiatives that benefit and empower women, such as this one, for example. Another interesting fact is that with the young ophthalmologists, they also have a committee with a favorable gender distribution. Their committee is about 40% female. So this is very important in grooming future female leaders. When it comes to academia and research, it is clear that we are sorely lacking here, unfortunately. Even though there are women clinical heads of departments managing, ophthalmology departments in hospitals across the country, we still only have 3 females heading up academic institutions. There's also too few female researchers, and this is something we need to really work on. So in reflection, so what is the state of women ophthalmology in South Africa? I pulled these 2 pictures up just to illustrate to you just how far we've actually come as a country. The picture on the left is from the days of Dr. Esther Franks, who was the first actually female ophthalmologist in the countries back in the 1920s, to where we are now, having 198 female ophthalmologists in the country, 44% of all ophthalmologists. And the picture on the right is of, just to illustrate, this is one picture of a male-dominated previous OSA EXCO board only a few years ago, to basically where we are now, where over the years we've steadily increased the number of female board members, and now also being led by women for 2 consecutive terms. So I think personally, it does look good for women in ophthalmology in South Africa. The future looks promising. We are well represented. There are more and more female ophthalmologists being trained. Definitely our leadership has more female leaders now, and especially youth leaders, which is quite exciting. There is, however, room to do better in academia, for example. I think we need more academic heads of departments to ensure that we shape and influence young female ophthalmologists for mentorship and for skills and knowledge transfer. Also in research, we need to have more females to have, I think, a lasting and significant impact on the impression. We definitely do also need to have more collaborations and network and partner with our international female colleagues. And we need to establish, more active and formal local and regional forums for support, for networking, for advocacy, and for lobbying. And I certainly think that it is time for us to have a Women in Ophthalmology South Africa chapter. I think we can do it, and I definitely think we should do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Madrola. And I was taking notes during your presentation, and we'll take that forward to our next meeting. I'll let you catch your breath before I hand over to you to introduce our next speaker.
have to ask you
So
to help me out here. Just I hadn't caught my breath yet.
Okay, would you like me to introduce Dr. Faye?
Just Dr. Faye, please do. Thank you.
Okay. So Dr. Faye Vatamasile is a consultant ophthalmologist and eye unit lead at the PCEA Kikuyu Hospital. She is a part-time lecturer in ophthalmology at Kenyatta University. She is a fellow of the College of Ophthalmology of the Eastern, Central, and Southern Africa, or COEXA, and a member of the Glaucoma Society of Kenya. She has published in the Journal of Ophthalmology of JOEXA, that's their local journal. Her main interests are in glaucoma and neuro-ophthalmology. She lives with her family in Nairobi, Kenya, and she's an avid lover of nature and enjoys meeting new people and visiting different places. Over to you, Dr. Faye. Dr. Masila, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Great, thank you. We can hear you now. You can go ahead. We can hear you now.
I think she might be having
Good
a
afternoon,
connection.
everyone.
Oh, there she
As
is.
I have been introduced, my name is Masila. Can you hear me? Hello?
We
Hello?
can hear you, Dr. Masila, but I think you're having
Can you hear
some
me?
connection issues. Hello, Dr. Masila?
Yes.
So I wonder if we shouldn't just, pause Dr. Masila and actually ask Prof.
Hello, is
Wade.
it better?
Oh,
Is it better right now?
Yeah, yes, much better. Thank you, Dr. Masila.
Okay. My name is Dr. Masila. I'm happy to be part of this webinar today. I'll introduce the women ophthalmology in Africa, the Kenyan situation. So women are the real architects of the society. As we know, they hold the home together and every other aspect of society. We came together as women ophthalmologists of Kenya on Valentine's Day this year so that we can represent the women ophthalmologists in the country, as well as worldwide. And it is an informal arm of the Ophthalmological Society of Kenya. It was officially launched on the International Women's Day on 8th March 2021 at the Lions Sight First Eye Hospital in Nairobi. Our group has 43 members, 60% of all women ophthalmologists in Kenya. So the beginning of women in ophthalmology in Kenya started in 1997, which was a year of women of ophthalmology in East Africa. Then for the first time in history of the Ophthalmological Society of East Africa, 3 women were elected as office bearers. The chairman was Dr. Dunera Ilako Wright, who is now Professor Ilako. The secretary was the late Dr. Marina Gondi, and the treasurer was that time Dr. Prabha Choksi, who's also currently one of the founder members of the Women Ophthalmology in Kenya. Then she was appointed as the first female editor-in-chief of the East African Journal of Ophthalmology. And from then on, women continued to make their presence felt in ophthalmology in the region. Women in ophthalmology have been actively involved in training. In the master's degree program at the University of Nairobi, we have a number of female lecturers. The University of Nairobi started the postgraduate training in 1978 to train ophthalmologists in collaboration with the University of Munich. And that partnership has trained a lot of ophthalmologists who are practicing in Kenya and various parts of Africa. Dr. Prabha Choksi was one of the first woman lecturer, and Dr. Indunera Ilako was the first woman student in ophthalmology at the University of Nairobi then. Women in ophthalmology in Kenya are also involved in training students who are undertaking their fellowships, ophthalmic clinical officers, ophthalmic nurses, and optometrists. So ophthalmologists are actively involved in training eye care workers in the country. The women ophthalmologists in Kenya have also done a lot in research. A lot of the postgraduate programs have generated a lot of research, and a lot of the studies done have been published in several journals. We also have a lot of PhD research, which has been done by females. And currently women are also in Kenya, are also doing a lot of audits in their clinical practice in ophthalmology. So in the first picture, we have one of our female ophthalmologists and one of the founder members of the Women in Ophthalmology in Kenya. She was awarded a PhD from London, and she also holds the position of Deputy Director of Academics at the Kenya Medical Training College. We also have women in ophthalmology who have received lots of fellowships and other opportunities to do research. In entrepreneurship, women ophthalmologists in Kenya are actively involved in entrepreneurship. A number have started full-time private practices, and others also carry out private practice. One of the well-known group practices is the Eagle Eye and Laser Center with various women ophthalmologists and has almost all the subspecialties. We have women engaged in leadership in various eye hospitals. A couple of the eye hospitals in Kenya are headed by women. In the picture there, we see one of our members, Dr. Helen Roberts, heads the Kwale Eye Center, is the founder and also heads the Kwale Eye Center. And we
Please
also
share
have
your screen. Dr. Faith, please share your screen. We could not see.
Okay. Just give me a second.
No.
Give me a second, give me a second. Let me just give me a second. Okay. Can you see?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So that is the first slide of the launching of the Women in Ophthalmologists in Kenya on 8th March 2021. The picture shows the founders of Women in Ophthalmology in 1997. The picture shows University of Nairobi, which is involved in training. And that picture, the first one shows one of our members who is a deputy director of one of the training institutions, and the other one of the members who received a fellowship in glaucoma. In entrepreneurship, we have group practice, a picture of group practice. We also have one of the founder members who is an ophthalmologist and heads one of the eye hospitals. And the second picture, the same, one of the female ophthalmologists who heads eye hospitals. We have women in Kenya also holding leadership positions in ophthalmological societies. And these societies organize scientific conferences as well as other continuous professional development activities. So we have the council members, honorary secretaries, being in the leadership positions in the National Ophthalmological Society. We also have our members representing ophthalmology in the Kenya Association of Women in Surgery. In professional development, we have the continuous medical education sessions, and these are also conducted by female ophthalmologists. Women in ophthalmologists in Kenya are involved in carrying out charitable activities. We have the Dr. Choksi Albinism Foundation, which is a charitable trust established by Dr. Prabha Choksi to reach out to the stigmatized and shunned albino children in Africa. It provides free eye checkup, free spectacle prescriptions, which are photochromatic, and supports education of these children in regular schools. Most of them come from extremely poor backgrounds. And the core mission of the foundation is being a life of dignity and honor for all people with albinism in the world. So many of our members have received awards. The first award shows Professor Ilako having been awarded Vision Excellence Award by the IAPB. And also Dr. Choksi received the Dr. Choksi Albinism Foundation Award. Women in ophthalmologists in Kenya have been involved in various social events. So in the vaccinations against COVID-19, women ophthalmologists received the vaccine, and we have our members encouraged to go and receive the vaccine, and a couple received the vaccines, as you can see in the photo. Women in ophthalmologists also engage in other hobbies. We have some of our members engaging in mountain climbing, others in bird watching. We have authors, we have runners, and so they're also involved in other activities. On the World Sight Day, women in ophthalmology were involved in creating awareness about eye diseases to the general public and the need to come for eye checkups. So various women in ophthalmology carried out different activities. In the first picture, we see Dr. Jyoti carrying out surgeries. Most of the surgeries during that week were subsidized or free. Spectacles were issued to children with albinism, and celebrations were held to mark the day. All this conducted and organized by women in ophthalmology. In conclusion, women ophthalmologists of Kenya are united in their common goal of treating curable visual impairment and blindness and preventing loss of sight in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Masila. It sure sounds like women or female ophthalmologists are doing great things in Kenya. I'm going to move on now to the next speaker. It is my great pleasure to call on Professor Patricia Wade. Dr. Patricia Diast Wade is a distinguished physician and academic. In the year 2000, she became a lecturer at the Faculty of Medical Sciences, University of Jos. She rose steadily through the ranks to become head of the ophthalmology department. She has been an honorary consultant at the Jos University Teaching Hospital and a visiting consultant to the Plateau Specialist Hospital in Jos. She is also a visiting consultant to the Lahatu Araf Specialist Hospital in Lafia, Nasarawa State. Dr. Patricia Wade belongs to several professional bodies and is notably the chairperson of Women Ophthalmologists in Nigeria. She is a member of the Ophthalmological Society of Nigeria, a member of the American Academy of Ophthalmology, a fellow at the National Postgraduate Medical College and treasurer of the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria, Plateau State branch. So over to you, Professor Wade, so you can give us a perspective of women in ophthalmology in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Dr. Majola, for this opportunity. And I also want to thank the organizers of this webinar for giving us the opportunity in Nigeria to share our activities and the story of Nigerian women ophthalmologists. Ours is still a baby or an infant organization, and we're trying to find our feet and hope to learn from the older ones. Though I've seen that we're even older than Kenya, so we'll also pull them along. And we hope to learn from WOW and other organizations. Thank you. I will start by giving a brief history of our organization. The Women in Ophthalmology in Nigeria was founded in August 2017 at the conference of the Ophthalmological Society of Nigeria in Kaduna as part of the Ophthalmological Society of Nigeria. So we are not just a different association altogether, we are still part of them. Just like Dr. Mohita Sharma shared, we have similar challenges like, is it a women liberation or is it anti-men, which is not actually, but we just wanted to bring ourselves under one umbrella to work together and be part of WOW. When we started in 2017, our pioneer chairperson was Dr. Folashade Akinshola with our secretary, Dr. Amina Wali, and other members of the society formed the Pioneer ESCO. Under the leadership of Professor Akinshola, we were able to bring all the women ophthalmologists in the country under one umbrella. As you know, our country is quite big, so we are divided into 6 geopolitical zones. And for ease of management and administration, we have coordinators in each of these zones. So we're able to know and gather all the women ophthalmologists in each zone and bring them under one umbrella. And they are all women who have qualified. The resident doctors are not members of the association yet until they qualify. We have about 142 women ophthalmologists for now, and we hope to register more. With the incoming ESCO, we want to now ask the coordinators to look out for those who have just qualified from, who are new fellows to join the society or to join us or the organization. We are registered with the Women in Ophthalmology worldwide. And since inception, we have been able to carry out the following activities. 1, ESCO and Congress meetings, both virtually and physically. As we all know what happened last year, it was impossible to hold many of these physical meetings, but we've been able to hold virtual meetings. And this year we held a hybrid meeting, both at the Ophthalmological Society of Nigerian Conference in Ilorin, Kwara State. We do organize mid-year symposia, and these have taken place virtually as well. We have participated in virtual meetings organized by Women in Ophthalmology, Global Association for Women Ophthalmologists. We participated in July last year. And in conjunction with the Ophthalmological Society of Nigeria, we have participated in activities of the World Sight Day and Glaucoma Week. Our members gave health talks in the media. In our various states, we were able to participate in health talks, and then we've been able to examine patients and carried out surgeries as well during all these weeks and days that we are observed. Our members also gave faculty lectures of the National Postgraduate Medical College. It is pertinent to say that our members have actually excelled in various in our various professions and have been members of various offices or are holding various offices in our universities. Like we have 2 who are DVCs or Deputy Vice Chancellors of our universities here in Nigeria. We have 3 who are Deans of the Faculty of Medical Sciences. And we have one of our members who is a Federal Permanent Secretary, and one is also a Director of ICT in her university. So the women of ophthalmology in Nigeria are actually participating and holding various offices in Nigeria. And the faculty lectures are very, very important lectures that are being given yearly. And our members have given this lecture. Professor Akishola, who is our pioneer or our pioneer chairperson, gave the lecture in 2020. And one of us, Professor Ademiki Adeoye, gave this year's lecture. We have given health talks to mothers at antenatal clinics on how to recognize early signs of childhood eye diseases, such as cataracts, retinoblastomas, and glaucomas. And we have actually demonstrated to them, and this can be done by observation while breastfeeding. What are our plans? The present ESCO that just came in this year in September under my leadership hope to consolidate on the foundation laid by the outgone ESCO and to liaise with the Medical Women Association of Nigeria. This group is a very active group that participates in so many things that that concern women and children. And being that we have the same objective, we hope to work along with them as well, so as to reach out to these women who do not have access to healthcare, particularly eye care. Many of our indigent women and children, especially in Africa, live in rural areas. And we all know that when it comes to health, when it comes to priority to healthcare, women are not actually the number one. So we hope to reach out to these women and to provide care for them. And we hope to get funds, because these women, most of them are too poor to access healthcare or are too ignorant. And we can only do that by getting funding from organizations and maybe politicians. And with WOW, we hope that we can all collaborate together and see how we can help these women, not just in Nigeria and many other parts of Africa who are facing a similar problem. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Professor Wade. I just want to congratulate Nigeria for having started their Women in Ophthalmology chapter, and also to you for leading them. And I hope to call on you soon for advice and guidance on how to start our chapter. Yeah.
Great,
so
you're
welcome.
Should I introduce Dr. Zifa?
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Bambisa.
Great, thank you, Dr. Majola. Our next speaker on the program is Dr. Zifa Bella of Ophoria J, and she is joining us from Ghana. She's a pediatric ophthalmologist who graduated from the University of Ghana Medical School and did her fellowship training in pediatric ophthalmology at the BC Children's Hospital of the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. Zifa works at the Lions Eye Care Center of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital and is involved in the training of medical students and residents in ophthalmology. Outside clinical work, Dr. Ophoria J enjoys medical and surgical outreaches and has been to many parts of the country offering these services. Zifa is the current president of the Ophthalmological Society of Ghana. She is a fellow of the Ghana College of Surgeons, a pediatric ophthalmology fellow of UBC Vancouver, Canada, and has a master's in medical leadership from the Lancaster University in the UK. Zifa is married to Yao, a physician specialist, and they have 3 children. Over to you, Dr. Ofori-Adjei.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Bayanda. It's a great pleasure to be part of this groundbreaking webinar. And unlike Prof. Wade, who just said that they were in the early stages, I think we are now in the embryonic stage, or probably now incubating, because we do not have a women's ophthalmological group yet. But we're looking forward to opening one. So just about 2 months ago at our annual general meeting, one of my senior colleagues and mentor reached out to me and said, you know, we should do something for women. There are quite a number of women here. We should have a Ophthalmological Society of Ghana Women's Fellowship or something like that. And so when Bayanda and Dr. Majola called to ask me about this, I realized that it's just the right time for this. So I'll be talking about the Ghanaian situation. We know Ghana is in West Africa. We have a population of about 30 million, out of which women represent about 50.7%. However, we've got very few women in parliament. Less than 20% of women are in parliament. And the Ophthalmological Society of Ghana is the professional body of ophthalmologists in Ghana. It was established in 1992. And we don't have that many members. We're just about 115 members. And out of that, within the past 28 years, we've just had 2 female presidents of the society. However, in the past 5 years, at least 50% of the executive council members are women. Currently, we have an executive council of about 8 people, 5 of which are women. So the college that is responsible for the training of residents in ophthalmology is called the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons. And I took a look at the gender of residents for the last decade. It's interesting to note that within the early stages, say the 2011 and 2012, in 2011, we didn't have any female at all, okay, doing residency in ophthalmology. And one thing too is that ophthalmology is a very new subspecialty. It's not, we say that it is a deprived subspecialty in Ghana. There's not a lot of exposure to it when the students are in medical school. They go through the ophthalmology for, I think, about 12 weeks in total. So very few of them are exposed to it. So there's a plan to increase the visibility of ophthalmology in the country. And last year, we inaugurated a young ophthalmological group of the OSG. And the plan is for them to encourage a lot of medical officers and a lot of young doctors to want to pursue ophthalmology as a specialty in Ghana. So you'd notice that from 2012, the number of females was the same as the number of males. And then steadily from about 2018, when we started creating awareness, the number of females in residency is increasing steadily. And in this year, we had a lot more females, more than 50% females doing residency in ophthalmology. So if we're able to launch this women in ophthalmology, it's going to go a long way to encourage a lot of women or a lot of young ladies to want to do ophthalmology as a subspecialty. So I looked at the other cadres of eye health in the country. I looked at the optometrists and then the ophthalmic nurses. With the optometrists, about 60% of them are males, and then 40% are females, as opposed to the ophthalmic nurses. And usually nursing in Ghana is looked at as a job for the females. So it's not surprising that the ophthalmic nurses, we have about 60% of them being female. And also when you look at the slide that I just showed, it tells you that in training, we're having quite a lot more females in the past 4 years. I'll speak a bit about a few women that have inspired some of us to do ophthalmology in Ghana. We have Dr. Maria Hagen. She's currently retired and was the head of the Eye Care Secretariat in Ghana. She served as the IAPB co-chair for Anglo-Ghana West Africa for over 12 years. And she had received many awards, including the IAPB Vision Excellence Award. And then she's also a member, appointed as a non-executive member of the Bank of Ghana. Another woman in Ghana that we look forward to, the young ladies look forward to, is Dr. Agatha Aboy. Dr. Agatha Aboy is a public health practitioner. She has experience for over 30 years, and she was very instrumental in eliminating trachoma in Ghana in 2018. So these are some of the few people in ophthalmology, few women in ophthalmology that inspire us. But we're looking forward with the help of women in ophthalmology worldwide, to begin the Women's Ophthalmology Group in Ghana. And we're looking forward to them to assist us to start that, to encourage a lot more young women to want to do ophthalmology, and then to increase the number of uptake of medical students in the residency. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Zifa. I'm going to now introduce you to our next speaker. This is somebody that I have been talking to for more than a year via email. So it's very exciting for me to finally see her face. And that's Dr. Erin Shriver. Dr. Erin Shriver is a clinical professor and the Jim O'Brien Gross and Donita Gross Chair in Ophthalmology within the Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences at the University of Iowa. She is actively involved in clinical practice, teaching, research, and advocacy. Dr. Shriver has been passionately involved in women in ophthalmology for many years. She was president of Women in Ophthalmology, chaired the Summer Symposium, and has been an active member of the board of directors since 2014. Dr. Shriver has also served as the president of the Iowa Academy of Ophthalmology, her state society, and participated in the leadership development program through AAO. She is the American Society of Ophthalmic Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery delegate to the American Medical Association, secretary of the ASOP's thesis committee. Her research interests include advances in oculoplastic techniques, critical analysis of current oculoplastic practices, establishing novel metrics for eyelid position and aesthetics, thyroid eye disease, intimate partner violence in ophthalmology patients, and the physics of eyelid malposition. When she is not working, she enjoys exercising and spending time with her husband and son. Over to you, Dr. Shriver.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Majola. It's really a pleasure to be here today. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Ophthalmological Society of South Africa, Dr. Mambisa and Dr. Majola, for putting this together and for inviting me to be a part of it. I'd also like to thank WOW and Dr. Mohita Sharma for her vision for bringing us together, not just as a network, but also as WOW to really work together as a group. There have been many of us involved in this, but Dr. Sharma has been a driving force and has put a lot of effort into this Zonal webinar as well. So I wanted to thank you all. First, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm so passionate about women ophthalmology. I was told that I didn't get a fellowship because I was a woman. The mentor that I was interested in working with had said he hadn't taken a woman fellow and he really didn't feel like he was ready to. And it was the first time I realized that my gender could be considered a barrier. And so I went to the Women in Ophthalmology meeting when I was a fellow back in 2007. And I have fell in love with it. I've been to every meeting I could. The only time I've missed meetings since then is if I had a child. So for childbirth, I've missed Women in Ophthalmology meetings, but otherwise I've been there. As you can see here, this first picture, Susan McDonald, Dr. Susan McDonald, who is going to speak later on today, was one of my mentors. And again, as Dr. Karani said, she really inspired me to join and be involved. So I've gained a lot of experience, leadership skills through it, and I felt empowered. I've never gone for an elective office. I never would have seen myself as a leader, but being part of Women Ophthalmology gave me those opportunities and it helped me improve my skill set. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what we've done at Women Ophthalmology and what opportunities I've been able to take advantage of, and hopefully forming these women ophthalmology chapters around Africa will give other women these kind of opportunities. So I was able to chair the meeting. I was on the Summer Symposium Committee for Dr. McDonald's meeting in 2011. Then I chaired the Summer Symposium. We had about 120 women at that time in 2013, and I've been on the board of directors since 2014. You know, I was in the leadership development program, as Dr. Majola mentioned, with the American Academy of Ophthalmology. And at that point in time, I wanted my project to be to form a network and figure out who are these other women around the world who are interested in ophthalmology. Well, I went to the American Academy of Ophthalmology. They really gave me 3 names. Like 3 names is all they knew around the world at that time. And I was really disheartened, and I tried to make an effort and email people, but I couldn't really come up with anything. So Dr. McDonald had gotten Women in Ophthalmology a position on the council with the International Council of Ophthalmology. So Women in Ophthalmology has a seat on the council, and they've had a symposium. Well, we put together a reception to try to meet women from around the world right after that symposium, and gave out awards. So that was a great opportunity for me to kind of ask around and find out who the women were that were doing advocacy within ophthalmology. And then we met in Barcelona in 2018. We were hoping to meet in South Africa this past year, but unfortunately we weren't able to do that. But we did have a webinar as part of the ICO and the World Ophthalmology Congress then. And I was president, as you mentioned, in 2020. And so I got to kind of pick the flair of what I wanted the organization to do at that time. And we put on a Women Ophthalmologists of the World webinar with 8 speakers from 8 different countries, many of whom are with us today. We also have recently had the opportunity to partner with women leaders in eye health with Orbis and Seva. And Sarah Wester, Dr. Sarah Wester, is our head of the International Committee for Women in Ophthalmology, and she's going to be speaking later, but I'll tell you a little bit more about our webinar series there. And because I had the opportunity to travel around the world and visit friends and meet colleagues, I was able to be a part of the founding of Women Ophthalmologists Worldwide at the WASP, you know, when we met and had that meeting in India, where we were talking about it. So what I wanted to do is, we've talked about, it's actually really exciting, everything that's happening throughout the continent of Africa and the organizations. What I thought I would do is briefly cover some of the organizations that are out there to maybe give you some ideas of things people are doing, resources that your ophthalmologists and your members can benefit from, and maybe give you an idea of how you might want to shape your organization. So one organization that I've really looked up to is Women in Vision UK. Now, this is a little bit unique in the sense that it's open to all women working in vision fields. So optometrists, researchers, there's quite a number of PhDs that are in the organization. And it also isn't just human vision. Also, there's an upcoming webinar on December 7th, which is free for all. And there's an invertebrate vision talk, as well as a veterinary ophthalmology talk. So it's any woman who's interested in vision care or research can get involved. They have over 300 members, and it was started around 2019. So I'm realizing, as you look at these dates, maybe this is part of the problem. Was in 2017, we didn't really have enough organizations for us to be able to do this, but the time is ripe, as we can tell that it's really a perfect time for us to do this. Women in Vision UK also has put together female speakers and useful contacts. They had a Women in Vision Day in the UK. There's free monthly webinars. And so if you go to their website, you can see it's womeninvision.co.uk. You can get access to learn about their webinars. They also have they're also very active on social media, Twitter. And membership is currently free. They're redoing their website. So there will be a nominal fee for membership in the future, but right now, any of you can join the Women in Vision UK. Dr. Maria Musaje has been a wonderful resource, and she's involved in the leadership, and she's also involved with WOW. The Women in Ophthalmology Arabia is started as mostly a Facebook group, and they've branched out since then. It was founded in 2019. Nancy Al-Raqad from Jordan, and our own, speaking after me, Dr. Iman Tarib from Morocco and now the United States. We're involved in founding it. They have over 400 members, and they're from the Middle East, North Africa, Turkey, and Eastern Europe. And you can easily join their group. I've joined their group, and I love seeing the posts if you're on Facebook. It's a platform for both advancement and mentorship, and they've recently paired junior and senior ophthalmologists. So it's really interesting to see how each group has a different take and different flair and a different platform. And they also have had some webinars as well. Now, RANSCO is the women's organization within, so they are associated with their Ophthalmology Association, the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Ophthalmologists, and they have a speakers bureau. They also have some interesting things because they're part of RANSCO. They have great access to the statistics. So they have a whole brochure about all the statistics of the gender ratios within leadership within RANSCO. And they have been the first that I've seen that has set a target. So they have set a target that on RANSCO committees, 35% need to be women. And they have this RANSCO tick, where if you have an event, you're putting on a meeting and you have made an effort to have gender equity in your panels and your speakers, you can ask for the RANSCO tick, and WIO will certify you as they look at your program. So I thought that was a great way to show that, gain awareness. And, it's interesting, Women in Ophthalmology in the United States actually is quite separate from an organization, and that was felt to be on purpose because there were concerns about resources, and they really wanted to be independent and do, advocacy the way they wanted to do advocacy. But it's interesting to see how powerful RANSCO has been able to come in their women's group in part because of their association with the organization. They have a 6-part webinar series. I thought you'd be interested. They have a YouTube channel, and these are the 2 that I thought you'd be interested particularly in. They have some basic science ones, as well as a Women in Ophthalmology Myths and Misconceptions. And then eye care in Africa. There was one on eye care in Africa with Shiko Mathenge was involved in speaking there. So that might be of interest. I think it launched today because I got an email from Helen Dinesh-Meyer, who's been very involved and is in the leadership and currently president, I believe, of the RANSCO Women in Ophthalmology, came out with a podcast, 10 Minutes of Science. It's a journal club style podcast. So you can visit their website. It's ransco.edu home, and then you go to community engagement and you can find their WIO page and learn more about that and get access to the podcast. WOS, or the Women Ophthalmologist Society of India, has the biggest group in the world, I believe. It was founded, Dr. Mohita Sharma spoke a little bit about it, but it was founded in 2015, has over 1,000 members, at least 16 state chapters, and they've been very involved in several arms. There's a social advocacy arm. There's also a Women in Research, and the Women in Research website in this next year is really going to get going. They've already had several webinars and activities, but they're going to have research opportunities for internationally, as well as a training program that will be up on the website. And that currently is available to everyone. And you don't necessarily, you can be involved internationally as well. There's a mentorship program, which also is available to international women. The annual conference, which I had the pleasure of going to, was fantastic. There's even a fashion show and a big dance, which I really enjoyed. And a lot of, as you can see, wonderful people and a lot of fellowship. And the Indian Journal of Ophthalmology, and Dr. Sharma sent out the invitation. Does anyone want to do a review? So several of us are going to work together on articles for that. And they have free access to all of their webinars too. So I encourage you to check out the WOS website. And they're going to start having an international membership option in 2022. And then Women in Ophthalmology, you've already heard about it from Dr. Famita Karati. It began actually in 1979. It was incorporated in 1988. And the first summer symposium was in 1998. Also approximately 1,000 members, and 45 of those are international. There's state, specialty, and international chapters. But as you're seeing, the international chapters are mostly, organizations that are doing a lot of things on their own and hold their own. And the 2021 summer symposium, we just had about 750 attendees. 530 of those were in person. Many of you were able to join. We were able to give free registration for everyone in Africa, and we hope to be able to do that again this year. There's also symposia at national and international meetings and a webinar series that I'll talk about. and a speakers bureau. For international members, it's a nominal fee. You get all the webinars. There were 6 in 2021. There's a clinical trials training program that had 5 webinars in this past year. And then there's a listserv, an email listserv where we write each other and send articles or topics of interest. And then this is also the summer symposium. I welcome all of you, anyone who can come to California. Hopefully we'll be traveling in this next summer, but if not, they'll definitely be hybrid, so we'll be able to join virtually. And then I just wanted to share what Orbis is doing. Women Ophthalmology worked with SEVA and Orbis and put together a webinar series. And if you haven't checked it out, I really would encourage you to. There's actually 4 webinars, 2 topics. We were looking at gender inequities and visual health in the workplace, and then catapulting your career. And there were both a Western Hemisphere and Eastern Hemisphere recordings and webinars for those. So there's 4 total webinars with 30 speakers from around the world. You can get to that by going to the cybersite.org. You can just search women. You go to the library tab up top, and then down at the bottom it says search, and you can search women and find those webinars for free. Those are just a few of the organizations that are doing things around the world. Hopefully I gave you an idea of some things that you could do. I also just wanted to tip my hat to the APAO organization and Dr. Eva, Professor Hossein is very involved. Actually, she's going to be the first woman president of APAO, so we're excited to have her with us here today. The Canadian Ophthalmology Society has a women's section. The Pan American Ophthalmology Society also has a women's group that gets together at their meetings. The Chilean Ophthalmology Society, Dr. Rosa Balcez, is here with us today, and she just put on a women's symposium at their conference. And then the Women in Ophthalmology Pakistan as well, which you've heard about, just had a webinar on oculoplastics, which was open to all. So as you can tell, I've been very inspired by my collaborations. I just put in pictures of when I attended RANSCO, when we were in Spain for the World Ophthalmology Congress, going to Colombia, India, and then our international webinar. And I look forward to more collaborations and working together with you all through WOW and through our relationships as well. As we have spoken about, we're stronger together. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I've really enjoyed hearing what has been happening within the organizations in your countries and within Africa. And I'm very much looking forward to the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shava, and thank you for highlighting what is already available. And it's so encouraging to see that there's so much work that's happening in different pockets throughout the world. And I'm really grateful for Women Ophthalmologists Worldwide for bringing it all together. And hopefully in the future, there'll be greater opportunities and more networking among women. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Absolutely.
our last speaker for today's, for this first session for today is Dr. Imani Tarib. So Dr. Imani Tarib is 30 and she's a Moroccan ophthalmologist currently based in Toledo, Ohio in the USA. She obtained the Moroccan Ophthalmology Board exam in 2020 of December. Dr. Tarib also did a research fellowship in cataract refractive surgery alongside Dr. Florian Kretz in Rhine, Germany in 2017-2018. She is the founder of Young Ophthalmologists in Morocco, the co-founder of Women in Ophthalmology Arabia, which we heard about a bit earlier, a YO committee member of the Global Education and Research Society of Ophthalmology, or GERSO, and a media partner leader of Eye Africa, a media platform for eye care professionals in Africa. Over to you, Dr. Tarib.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thank you for making this happen. To you, Dr. Mbambisa, to Dr. Majola, Dr. Sharma, as well as Dr. Kirani. It's always a great pleasure to be part of these women ophthalmologists meetings. It's always very inspiring and very, very much needed as well. So thank you all for having me today. As Dr. Mbambisa said, my name is Iman Tarib. I have done a residency in Morocco, and I am a candidate for a second residency in the US. So literature reviews are going to be part of my life for some more years. So today I want to talk to you about Women in Ophthalmology, a literature review. So my first exposure to Women in Ophthalmology was back in 2016 when I attended AAO, and there was a reception by Women in Ophthalmology at the end of the day, and I was looking for events that were happening that were, one, free, and two, that were going to interest me. And I was very much interested in women as well as young ophthalmologists. And so when I saw all the ladies being awarded and talking about all the things that they have achieved, I was just amazed, because up until then, I was pursuing my residency at a department where exclusively all of my seniors were males, and I never thought of gender as being a limitation to how far I could go in ophthalmology. But I kept that idea in the back of my head and carried on learning about women ophthalmology societies around the world, only because it made sense to me to have them there as some kind of compass to follow. And so following that, I was kindly invited to Women Ophthalmology Society in India by Dr. Mohita Sharma, who is has always been a guidance star for myself. And what I remember when I asked my boss to give me the time off that was out of my holidays to go to present at Women Ophthalmology Society in India, I remember that his sarcastic comment asking about a Women Ophthalmology Society, why do you even need that? Don't you have all the subspecialty societies already? He just didn't see a sense into that. And I had a hard time explaining how much sense it meant to me. I just couldn't put it into words. But nevertheless, I kept being in touch with all these societies and being inspired throughout my residency. And I had the honor of being a small part of starting Women Ophthalmology Arabiyat, which started as a virtual space that went to WhatsApp, and then from that back again to webinars. But what matters is the reunion and having all these women together at the same place, and great, tremendous things happen out of it. And now we are so lucky and blessed to live in a world where we have a Women Ophthalmologists Worldwide Society. So as I said, having these societies right there, attending their events and being active part of it made sense to me, only because I felt that there were some limitations related to my gender in regards to advancing in my career. However, explaining that to my peers always was a tremendous issue. And so the scientific that I am, this question of why do you need a woman in ophthalmology society, I just wanted to give a didactic answer to it that has numbers, because I mean, we're scientists and we all believe in numbers more than in anything else. So this is usually a very, very number heavy talk that lasts for over 7 minutes. And for the sake of time, I'm gonna fly over it. But in summary, what I looked into when I did this literature review was numbers of women in ophthalmology in leadership, in faculty, and in residency positions, as well as surgical volume, because we all love that. And it's a very important part of our training, as well as our advancement in our careers, as well as presence in literature and academic publications, etc., and industry ties. So now let me show you the numbers that I found. The first article that I could find in my review dated back to 1997 and was talking about the emergence of women in ophthalmology. And so this article found that 125 years after Barrows, only 11% of practicing ophthalmologists in the United States were women. And of these women, 15% were part of the American Board of Ophthalmology. Now, back to 2010, all the way to 2010, this article looked into gender characteristics among academic ophthalmology leadership, faculty, and residents. And so this survey was interesting because it looked into numbers of people in those specific positions. And these programs that were studied in this article comprised 53 of the programs that were studied had 96% of them were led by male chairs. And in terms of residency program directors, 67% of them were males. And when it comes to faculty and residents, they comprise 28 and 45%. And these numbers are important. Why? Because the new generation of ophthalmologists looks up to those people the same way that I did back in my times, and found that to be somehow unconsciously limiting to my moving forward in my career. And so this article clearly found, after reviewing this with the people that were part of these programs, that it is important to have encouragement and career satisfaction, work-life balance, and all of this comes with appropriate mentorship from female ophthalmologists, and them just being there as role models for the young ones. Another article from 2012 looked at a 5-decade profile of women in leadership positions in ophthalmic publications. And leadership positions either means first authorship or last authors. As we all know, the last authors are usually the program directors or the chairs of departments that are leading the research work. And so this study found that women ophthalmologists that were authoring publications, good news, they were increasing in numbers. However, all the editors of the journals were male. And this discrepancy related to the relatively young generation of female ophthalmologists that's coming up, as well as a selection bias that was related to the study. But overall, there was a tremendous major numbers in males compared to females. This article from 2013 looked as well as underrepresentation in published ophthalmology in a literature for the period of 9 years from 2000 to 2009. And it found that fewer female were last authored compared to female first authors in the same period. Again, this is a trend of young generations and new generations comprising more female than the generations that came before us. As we saw earlier, these generations have done so much for us to be able to talk in this space right now and have this strength and this leadership to kind of spread the word about women in ophthalmology and especially advocate for what is right for us. This article from 2015 looked at a decade-long profile of women in ophthalmic publications. As you can see, it is a trend. There's quite a few publications about this, and I only chose the ones that have striking numbers. And graphs are great. Graphs are great to show my boss, for example, when he asked, why did I need a woman in ophthalmology society, and go and speak in that. So this graph, for example, is showing the fluctuation in the percentage of women authors and ophthalmologists over a period of 10 years, from 2000 to 2010. What you can see as an orange line is articles with females as first authors. We see a great increase in this in this line, and that's wonderful. But then when you go and you look at articles with females as last authors, it's not as high, but still there is an increase in it that we hope will keep going on for the years to come. Articles with women as last authors by subspecialties were different, and we found there was always a trend of having the lowest numbers in retina and the highest numbers somewhat in cataract surgery. This article by Ophthalmology was looking at trends in authorship of articles in major ophthalmology journals by gender. So this article specifically, I wanted to add it, even though it is redundant with the ones that I cited before, because this one had specific criteria of choosing journals that are really, really hard to publish in. And so in this article, the conclusion was that despite there was an overall increase in the contribution of women to the field of ophthalmology in highly indexed journals, the contribution to articles in subspecialty journals and the proportion of women as last authors on overall articles was still low. And this is in 2016. So 5 years ago. Now, moving on from literature and numbers and academic positions, let me talk to you about industry ties. As we all know, industry ties and relationships make a lot of things happen. Activities like this one, advancement in research, being involved in clinical trials, etc. So it is really important to have those industry ties. And so this original investigation looked at exactly that. And it found that the women make quite the minority of ophthalmologists that have professional industry relationships. And I can talk to you about myself and some women ophthalmologists around me back in my program. Every time there was anything that involves relationships with industry, we were always feeling quite careful, because anything that involved any relationship that would somewhat create a dilemma regarding who's more in a position to get those ties to move forward with their careers and with things that can happen within the department, that we were always shying away from it. And so this is actually translated in this article that found quite the striking numbers that show the difference between those ties between male ophthalmologists and female ophthalmologists. I'll fly over these graphs because that'll take way longer to talk about, but they're really great. And I encourage all of you to go to these articles. I'll be more than happy to share the links to all of them if you want to go and read them on your own time. Now, this is something that we love as residents, and I suppose as surgeons in general, and that is surgical case volume. This article from 2019 was great because it was right before my last year of residency, and I was struggling with those surgical numbers. So I loved finding this, and I actually read it like the minute it came out, and I was showing it around in my residency program. And it talks about the gender differences in case volume, and this was done in a department in the United States, which compared to where I was doing my residency, at least in the programs in Western countries, I knew there was something called logbooks. People had certain numbers that they had to meet, certain criteria in terms of surgical volume. We didn't really have exactly that. So I always thought that would be something that immunes women from having any discrepancy when it comes to surgical volume. However, as you can see in these graphs, the female residents being in orange, the male residents a number being in blue, there is always a lower numbers when it comes to this, this volume. So female residents, let me give you one number that's really important. Female residents performed 7.8 to 22.2 fewer cataract operations compared to their male peers. And this is just cataract operations. There's also an analysis of all ophthalmologic procedures that you can go and look at in this article. Again, about authorship, I'll move forward, but all in all, just to let you know, you can go and do this literature review and find tons of other articles. Some are in journals that study numbers, etc., and some are in journals that just talk about women's journey in ophthalmology. And it is great to talk about it. Why? Because I remember the first year resident that I was, that always thought that being a woman was never going to be something that I had to take into consideration to advance in my career. However, reality showed that it is somewhat a limitation in different aspects and at different levels of the advancement in the career. So having these societies is a great place to showcase how, first of all, attending what you really want as a young ophthalmologist can be possible, because you have all these leader women in ophthalmology who are here with us today, who you can meet in other platforms as well, who can be these guidance stars for all of us to pursue those ambitions despite all of these limitations while working on them. So we're really lucky to be living in a time where we have all of these women's societies and as well having access to these discussions in the virtual space. One more thing before I go, and it is this pertinent article that talks about the impact of COVID-19 on a longitudinal ophthalmology authorship gender trends. In summary, this article found that there was quite a slight increase in numbers of women compared to males, but COVID, unfortunately, the pandemic had some kind of a break-in effect to this increase that we hope we're going to revive again very, very soon, and even stronger maybe, hopefully. So yeah, so why do we need these women in ophthalmology societies? Honestly, we do need them, like every day, all the time. I believe since day one of being in medical school. And maybe people who think about doing ophthalmology should be aware of these societies, because it will only help them to be encouraged to go into ophthalmology, as well as seeing it as a field where they can really thrive. We need the empowerment, the mentorship, the sponsorship, the leadership, the training, the collaborations. We need to highlight these amazing women that can be really guiding stars for all of us, and to eventually, so we can all break those glass ceilings and move forward with our specialty, that is ophthalmology. So we're really, really happy that we managed to create something that we call Women in Ophthalmology Arabia on the virtual space so far, and we managed to do that during the pandemic. It is a great space that, thank you, Dr. Shriver, for mentioning us. We hope that we'll get to meet in person sometime soon and collaborate with all the amazing other women's societies all around the world. And thank you so much for your time and for having me today.
Esther, thank you so much, Dr. Tarib. You know, you are right. We are scientists at the end of the day, and we need, empirical data to speak for us and to highlight some of the, inequalities and discrepancies in our professional space, to help us to know what to focus on and for making changes. Okay, so to move on, this is actually the end of the first session. It's been an exciting first half with very good presentations, giving us a perspective of what's really going on in our world, in Africa, everywhere in the world with women ophthalmologists. So I'm going to hand over to the chairs of the next session. It's quite exciting. Session 2 we have 20 panelists, quite an impressive group of female ophthalmologists. So I'm just going to hand over to Dr. Susan McDonald and Dr. Ava Hussein to introduce the next session.
Well, hi, everyone, and I am delighted to be co-chairing this with Ava Hussein, who is a hero to most men and women in ophthalmology. I am delighted to hear such incredible talks from all these speakers. Just incredible, high quality presentations with statistics. So congratulations, ladies. And to Dr. Tarib, who the answer to the question of why do you need WIO or what is because I do. Period. And we do not have to explain ourselves to men. This is something we need, and you know what? That's up to them to try and figure out. Now, leading this next discussion, we wanted to really focus on surgical training. As Dr. Tarib pointed out, that cataract surgical training in residency, there's a significant discrepancy. And so, one of the most powerful things about being an ophthalmologist is having the confidence and the surgical expertise to handle anything in your subspecialty. And so that is something I think each and every one of us need to help each other with. And so this next session is really to have a discussion about how women in different areas, how can we help each other gain that expertise? And we know when you graduate as a resident from a residency program, male or female, you're still on your learning curve. You're still an advanced beginner. And so it's really with continuing medical education and mentorship that you're going to become an expert. And so I wanted to just start with asking some of the panelists if, in particular, is there something that you see as a gap where you are training right now or where you're practicing? And I'm going to just open that up. Well, anyone want to jump in?
Hi, Susan. Just before we proceed to the panel, we have one speaker, Dr. Nisha Chauhan, who's a phaco-refractive surgeon who trained in India, an associate consultant, and she's supposed to speak for a few minutes to highlight the need for surgical training. And then I want to pick up exactly where you said, where do we need it? Because we just had a recent article coming out of U of T showing that our residents are not equitably handed cases. So I think that that's a really important topic, that the need for surgical training is even more because there are unconscious biases that are present in some of our instructors. And so we may not be equitably handed the same number of cases as our co-residents and co-fellows. So before we go on to that very important topic, Dr. Nisha Chauhan, please.
Greetings to everyone. My topic of presentation today is need and ways to improve surgical skills. So coming to the minimum surgery requirement put by the regulatory bodies in different countries. So according to Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Ophthalmologists, the minimum number of intraocular surgeries needed in residency are 50 in the first 2 years. And according to Royal College of Ophthalmologists, 50 cataract surgeries are needed in first 2 years of residency training and at least 350 at the end of training. And according to Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education, at least 86 cataract surgeries are needed prior to graduation. So what is the need for improvement of surgical skills? As everyone already discussed, during our residency training, there is not an adequate surgical exposure, and the main emphasis is on the academics, and there is a long queue of OPD patients, especially in the government hospitals, and residents are in a pressure to clear the OPD load more. And there are gender differences in the surgical training. So the main reason for that could be because when we finish our residency training, the beginning of our career usually coincides with the beginning of our families, and we have to balance the work and family. Most of the time, we have to take a maternity break. So during the time when we are supposed to actually do our specialty training and higher training, we have to take a sabbatical from the work and take care of babies. So, and also there are differences because at the patient level in India, in government hospitals, still patients prefer see males as doctors and females as nursing staffs. So they don't want to be operated by female surgeons, and mentors have their choices and preferences, and some mentors prefer giving more surgeries to male residents. So I'll be sharing my experience of my professional journey. I did my 3-year residency program in Government Medical College of Agra. I did around 500 manual exercises, but I was not given a single phaco. Only consultants were doing phaco during that time. After that, I did a 1-year training in charitable hospital in capital of India, which is Delhi. And I was lucky enough to do around 120 phacoemulsification surgeries. After that, I joined a 3-year senior residency program in Government Medical College of Delhi. Again, I did around 400 exercises, but no exposure to phaco. So after around 7 years of training in ophthalmology, I did only around 120 phacoemulsification and around 900 excision surgeries. At the end of my SRship, I got pregnant with my baby, and I took around 1-year maternity break. After 1-year maternity break, when I decided to look for the job, I was not able to get a good job because either I was told that I don't have enough experience in phaco, or I don't have a specialty fellowship training. So I had a tough time of finding a job. One day I got a mail from Women Ophthalmologists Society, and it was specifically for the women who were on a break. So what was a break in my career, it actually became an opportunity for me. And they called out for the proposals for the women who were having minimum 2-year break. And it was exactly, I was exactly fitting the eligibility criteria. So I applied for it. They had a collaboration with Department of Science and Technology of Government of India. They wanted to bring the women who had a career break into the mainstream so that they can join work again. And because it was funded by the government, we had a government grant. There was a good stipend also. So I started my fellowship in Tirupati Eye Center. I joined as a trainee phacorefractive, and I started doing phacoemulsification surgeries again. So I had a 5-year break in my surgical training of phacoemulsification. After around 20 surgeries, I was again confident in doing surgeries independently. And after around 50 surgeries, I was able to train the new trainees, and I became a trainer. I was able to do complicated surgeries after around 50 surgeries, and ma'am had a faith on us, and he started giving us private cases also. Earlier, we were doing only camp surgeries. So how to improve our surgical skills? There should be a set criteria for passing of cases from mentors to the trainees. Like all the clean cases of immature cataract, those who are not having any complications, charity cases, they all should be passed from mentors to the trainees. And because tertiary centers have more of the complicated cases, they should have tie-up with community health centers for common and clean cases. There should be a separate training OTs because trainees in the beginning of their career, they need more surgical time. There should not be only the emphasis on surgical skill. We should be taught about the personality development, how to communicate with the patients, how to convince the patients so that they have trust in us, and managerial skills also. There should be a review of surgical videos to enhance it. We had it in the Tirupati Eye Center. After this, all the OTs, we used to have review of our surgical videos, and ma'am used to tell us what are the mistakes and how we can rectify it. Now there's an introduction of virtual reality surgical simulators, which is a very good technique, especially in the time of pandemic when we are getting very less number of surgeries. Ours was also a pandemic batch, but still we were lucky enough to get good number of surgeries. So these are the changes which we can apply in the pandemic. At the end of each year of residency training and at the end of residency, we should find those candidates who are surgically challenged and try to find out what are the problems they are facing and what is the final departmental decision on how to improve it. So the most common problems, apart from the surgical techniques, the residents which face is poor hand-eye and foot coordination. Because phaco has been introduced, we need 3 coordination, hand, eye, and foot coordination. And the very important thing which I was taught by Mohita ma'am during my training was, because it is we are working on a depth, so we have to change the focus all the time. This is something which I never found in the books, and we have to keep changing the focus. It is a very important point. And a very common problem is a poor intraoperative judgment. Most of the time, residents are not able to find when the complication occurs and how to proceed with it. So we can have grand rounds, especially in the pandemic when there are less number of cases. For each and every case, there should be a discussion prior to the surgery. There should be a proper planning for the surgery and how to do the incision planning, what modification, the technique this particular patient requires. And if you don't have enough guidance in your residency program, there are other programs like activities by Women Ophthalmologists Society. There is a mentor-mentee program by WOS, and there is an online resident program where we can choose our mentors, we can meet our mentors, and they can properly guide us for our professional journey. So while we need to celebrate how far women ophthalmologists have come, we also need to be honest about how far it still is there to go. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Nisha, for sharing your journey, because I think that we all have encountered obstacles as women, where whether we know it or not, our gender has been an issue for someone else. And so I think that as women educators, we have to be mindful of this. And so now I want to go back to our great question Dr. McDonald posed about teaching and how we can encourage excellent teaching everywhere and how we can encourage our mentees to absorb the knowledge. And can you please, Susan, share your experience? I know that you had a great mentor with Alan Crandall, and maybe you can share that. I think that's an important one. I also want to highlight, we have such great, strong teachers in this panel, from Chile to the UK to like everywhere. You're all here, and I have so many questions for you. So please, let's start and make sure that we highlight everyone's experience in training. So the question is, how do you improve your training? What do you have to do? And what would we recommend looking back on our experience for our young mentees? So please take the show.
I'm going to start here, and I'm going to say I did have most of my mentors were men, and I had a high volume of surgery. And I've trained over 150 residents on how to on phacoemulsification at our training program. And I'm going to give you the tips for anyone that is learning. You need to learn how to focus the microscope. If you come into the operating room with me and you're having trouble up and down, you know what happens to my blood pressure? Up and down, up and down. I want to be in focus. And so learning how to focus, you can do that on your own. And so my biggest tip is this: you need to come to the operating room well-trained, well-versed on the patient's particular history, and show me that you are ready to go. You are qualified and ready to operate on my patient that I'm trying to make sure gets the best care possible. And that means you need to spend time in a wet lab. You need to spend time on virtual if you can. You need to be watching cases, and you need to educate yourself ahead of time about the patient's condition, whether they have pseudoexfoliation. When you get in the OR and I see you've done this, and I see your hand-eye coordination because you've been under a microscope tying for about 40 hours in the wet lab, I'm going to want to train you, and because it's not going to be hard for me and it's not going to be anxiety provoking. So think about that. Think about coming and being better than every other resident, and you will get the cases.
So that's a great point, right? That come ready to learn, do your pre-work, right? I think that's a key point. Can I navigate to Dr. Ford? Rebecca, can you comment? Because as oculoplastic surgeons, we also have we might have a few different tips. So Rebecca?
Hi, Femina. I mean, I think I was just going to say, in terms of trying to get more equality between women and men in training, some of the things we've got to do, it's not just down to the trainees, it's down to the trainers, and we've got to raise the awareness that there are these differences and work on it during faculty development. I think the other thing is for the women trainees to be aware that these differences exist, and that sometimes people are not offering you the cases because you're not being forward enough about asking for them. So I think it's worth women residents saying, speaking up and saying, I think it's my turn to operate now. Can I do this case? And we know that men are more likely to volunteer to do a case if they're sort of maybe if they're 50% confident that they can do it, whereas a woman may not offer to do it until she's sort of 90% confident. So I think it's about building our confidence to ask for cases and to ask to get involved in training. I think one tip of something that's going on, this is cataract training as much as oculoplastics training in our region. I think one thing that's probably helping is that we're getting more facilities for people to practice at home. So in terms of wet lab, if you've got small children, it may not be that possible to come in early and stay late to work in a wet lab, but we're now using portable little microscopes so that people can take sutures home and practice suturing artificial corneas. Okay, you may not have an actual phaco machine at home, but you can practice. And this similarly with all of our residents are getting a little set of oculoplastic suturing instruments and the sort of silicone suture pads so that they can go and practice at home. And that may be another way to level the playing field, is giving more opportunity to practice outside of work.
I think that the point you made, Dr. Ford, is that women sometimes have to ask, may I take this case, or may I do this? And I felt like I was probably almost one of the boys when I was a fellow, and I would just say, it's my turn now, Dr. Katowitz, can I do it? I feel like I've watched enough. And when I go back to Canada, I'm going to have to do a truckload of these. So please let me have a chance. So I think that taking initiative is really strong. So Helena, can you please comment? I know we spoke about this when we were doing the Orbis webinar, the SEVA Orbis webinar. Can you comment about this, Helena?
I was just reflecting on my situation. And I have 5 female residents at the moment who I've done what Dr. Ford's done and just given them things to take home, practice this. It's interesting having a complete range and the competitiveness between them is really quite interesting for me to.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Helena. I'm sorry. I don't know if your Wi-Fi is cutting in and out. Can you repeat that?
Is that clearer?
Yes.
Okay, great. No, I was I don't seem to be having a reverse situation where I have too many female residents. I've got 5.
Okay, that's interesting. Very interesting. So the winds are changing now. And Dr. Sarah Wester from Miami, can I call on you to comment?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much. First of all, this has been an amazing webinar. It's such a privilege to take part in it and hear from everybody across the globe. I think that a couple of things. I really want to reiterate what Susan said. And I think for plastics, it's actually even easier to do that. As Rebecca was saying, there's so much you can do at home to build your own confidence. And I think, as Rebecca said, women tend to need a little bit more upfront confidence to go grab that case or be more proactive. And so not only are you helping your mentor, by coming in more prepared, but you're helping yourself. And I mean, you can go buy some chickens, get some instruments, and just suture. And that will help you in glaucoma, in cornea, no matter what. You just practice or you do something that's reinforcing hand-eye coordination. And I promise you, when you come to the OR with me, I know, and I think all mentors kind of have that same experience. So I think that's really, really important. I wanted to reiterate that. I also wanted to mention that we are actually, as a follow-up to the World Leaders in Eye Health series by Orbis, we're going to do a coffee hour, and it will be kind of specialty based. So Famita, Aaron, and I are going to start with an oculoplastics one. Yay! And the idea there is to discuss things like this. So for mentors and mentees and people from across the globe, we all learn from each other. So I almost don't want to use the mentor-mentee terminology, but for us all to come together, share difficult cases, share experiences, share how we've learned. Because I think the more vulnerable and open we are to communicating how we all got our gray hairs, the more we all can learn together. And so that's kind of the purpose of this. And we hope it will be quite international oculoplastic seminar. There are things when I go somewhere else, they do surgery very differently. And I learn a lot from that. And so we can all kind of share in experiences like that. And I think so I would add that the willingness to kind of share with colleagues experientially what you've learned in the OR with people that you feel safe with is really, really helpful in terms of growing. You know, this happened to me in the OR, go home, reflect about it. And if you really take it in, you'll grow. So those are the two things I would say.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Dr. Rosa Balcells from Chile, do you have anything to contribute here?
Oh, yes, sure. Well, thank you very much for the invitation and for the meeting. It's been an awesome meeting. All the talks have been very, very interesting and always make us think about all the issues and how different they are, but they are the same everywhere anyway. You know, we all go through all this. And thinking about teaching, I think there is also like a very important thing that we as a mentor can do as being prepared about doing a proper feedback. Like for instance, in Chile, females residents, probably they don't have enough OR cases, but most of them feel that they are not good enough as male residents to be able to get those cases, you know. So all the tips about being more confident are very important, but I think also being able as a teacher to give proper feedback and make them know that they have to stand up for it is also very important. Even not only stand up for it, some of them didn't even realize that they are not getting enough as the other residents do, you know. So I think there is a few resources for us in Chile because we are related to the Pan American Association of Ophthalmology. We have some webinars and very interesting that I believe they are related to the ICO about how to give feedback to your resident, how to learn how to teach your residents. And I think they have been very, very useful for me, for my fellow, for my residents. There's like a different way to think about things. And one little pearl that I think is very useful, they can videotape or record their surgeries, and we can go and check on them later on and, you know, go with every tip or every different thing that they should do. It's not only useful for them, but it's amazing how much you can learn yourself about different things that they come with because they are younger or they have new ideas. So it's like a win-win situation when you have take the time to do those things.
Dr. Ava?
And ask Ava if you were right on the, leading the force here, and you're a tremendous surgeon. And the question is how do you see it changing? And do you have any tips?
Yes, of course. I would like to congratulate all the speakers of the first session for their excellent presentation. I will not go in details about that, as because this is the time for need and ways to improve the surgical skill. This is very important session, and I wonder how it is possible. Dr. Nishad has presented that after 900 SICS, then she can allowed to do the phaco. Here is a question of mine. I would like to ask this question to Nisha. Why this has happened? Why not earlier? As because the steps of SICS and the steps of phaco, there are some difference, but the beginning, everything are same except the sculpting, except the phaco aspiration and all that. But beside that, to prepare the surgical bed, it is all the same, but still it is not. So I think this is very important for the mentor and mentee. Mentor should be very much polite, cooperate, and the mentee also. We are talking about the female resident. During this residency, they should come up and say what they have, their weakness, where is the weakness. They should tell about that to the supervisor, to the mentor, and they will talk each other, and they will try to do this in the home, in a soft thing. They are trying to do the surgery procedure and also in the wet lab, and next is the training center and the simulator, all this later on. But beginning, they should learn in that way, that how to do the surgery, how to give a suture. This is very important, as because nowadays we are going for the non-suture surgery. But if a corneal transplantation, keratoplasty, they should give the suture. For the residency, not only the phaco, but there are corneal surgeon, glaucoma surgeon. They should know, they should try to do the suture, how the cornea, how deep is the sutured bite.
Yes,
So
Ava, you could give us an entire talk about how to be a better surgeon, but I'm just going to ask that we have a couple panelists. Ellie Pradhan, I'd love to hear what questions they may have for you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Thank you everyone for inviting me. This has been tremendously, informative for me. Actually, looking at, listening to Nisa's story, Dr. Nisa's story, that just reflects mine, and it's the story of all residents. And I think the way she has come out confidently as a trainee now, that just gives the impression that, all residents, those trainees, needs to be very confident. They need to be proactive, and they should be hardworking, enthusiastic, and ready to learn from their mistakes, like not to get disheartened by, sometimes we do mistakes and then we feel, oh, why did we choose this subject? So, we should be confident enough to overcome that disheartening feeling. So, and also like, the trainees, we shouldn't focus mainly on the surgery. They should be academically sound, and they should know their subject as well. And is in our country, like in Nepal, there's so many female residents and fellows. So we are just following the trends worldwide. So I think there is definitely a discrepancy between male and female residents. Females are getting less and less training. So we also need to know why this is happening. And this, this webinar has really gave me some insights regarding that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to ask Artie for your input.
And then after that, we'll ask our South African colleagues who are in the chat. Dr. Mati after Arti, please.
All right. So
Dr.
I
Arti,
feel there's no shortcut to excellence. You need to consistently. Yeah, I'm unmuted. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So
Yes.
first of all, I feel there's no shortcut to your journey. If it's 25 years for me to reach being a squint, refractive, and a cataract surgeon, it was only that I put my ego behind and I was always consistently assisting. So first of all, I feel if you assist, you learn a lot. So by assisting good surgeons, you pick up the points. Then you need to go to conferences. You need to look up the YouTube and consistently doing the kind of senior residency, the junior consultant and a senior consultant to reach a level where over the 20 years, you've been actually seeing good surgeries, practicing them, and wherever gotten the time. I think I never said no to assisting any senior surgeon, even till date. Yesterday itself, if I were to see a smile surgery, which I would have been doing myself, I was standing there and seeing it, because the points you pick up, seeing, observing, you need to be hands-on. There's no shortcut to practice and excellence, and ego has to be really behind you, to let you not say a no to, picking up points any time in life. So I love to attend conferences, webinars, and I'm very hands-on whenever given a chance. Even lately, I did a trabeculectomy. I'm being a cataract surgeon, I don't say no to any surgery, which I feel I'm confident to do it. So I guess a wholesome surgeon is only by observation and practice, practice, practice.
So I love that, Pearl, right? Don't stop learning, right? Just because we're finished our residency, our fellowship, why can't we do the new technique, right? There are new techniques that are evolving, and there are techniques that we might not have been exposed to. So let's ask our African colleagues, Dr. Mati, can you, there you are, I see you.
Yes, hi, yes.
Go ahead and share your experience. I would love to hear if there's a diversity in training experience in Africa. Please go ahead.
Great, thank you. And thank you for this one. I'll maybe just to go back to Susan's initial question when she asked about there being gaps. And there definitely are some gaps. There's gaps in terms of just representation from leadership. So in terms of who your trainer is, I think that's one big thing. So when you're looking at the difference between males and females and seeing that females are slightly lower in numbers. You mentioned at a point, Femida, that speaks to something else, the idea of unconscious bias. So where there's this unconscious bias that sort of reduces the opportunity for your female resident, to be able to enjoy more surgeries. And I think that then ends up creating sort of lower confidence, and they may end up with some element of imposter syndrome. So I think these two things together are a bad cycle. They kind of feed into each other. I think also just women tend to be focused on having a better work-life balance, because there may be children, there's husbands, and we carry that to work. So we're not cutthroat, and surgery is so competitive. I think we probably almost take the back seat in essence in terms of training. In terms of just points, just to add to what the other speakers have added, with regards to training residents, I think preparation for me is, as a glaucoma specialist, I think being prepared and knowing your patient. And I think this was one of the things that helped me develop quite quickly as a fellow training in Moorfields, and also having an opportunity to debrief. I think as I went across to do my fellowship as a senior surgeon, so a well-experienced surgeon, and the debrief for me really was everything, in terms of being able to kind of walk through the case and hearing. Someone actually made a point that when you have feedback, appropriate feedback, you then realize you can step into your greatness, that it's already there. It's about someone pointing you to it. And so that really boosts the confidence. And I want to say that even as a senior, someone who's quite senior, we shouldn't feel as though we've reached the end of our learning, because we're always learning. And I know some of the things I've learned in the UK have been from the residents there, one or two things from the residents there. So I think we maintain that sort of openness to constantly be learning, especially in a place where you have senior and junior consultants or ophthalmologists. There should be a good platform to be able to come forward and allow someone to observe you, and you can just tweak. You're probably great, but you can become a more excellent surgeon if you just allow someone to observe. Is there anything that you can do differently? I think there's different levels of training, and I'm involved in sort of resident training, it's junior consultant training, so different levels of training. I think there's definitely something worth to say about that. Thank you.
Dr. Mathid, I want to ask you a question. Do you record your cases, and how do you feel about that being such a great opportunity to give feedback?
So I didn't before. And when I got to Moorfields, I recorded every single case, and it was the single best thing for me, because there are things that you don't see as you're going through the stress. And I'm in a first world country operating on high maintenance patients, and, so there are things you kind of lose along the way. But when you're able to go back and reflect, and I do encourage my registrars residents to record their surgeries. Unfortunately, resources also prohibit that. So that for me it really is unfortunate. It also helps for the teaching of other residents to be able to reflect on a person's case, because often mistakes that happen are common to everybody, if people are, different levels or similar levels. So I think it's one thing that I absolutely advise where there's an opportunity. I certainly do still, as a consultant, I still do record some cases, and it always just to help me think back and like, what did I do differently this time around? And so yes, I do encourage that.
So Dr. Susan, I wanted to put across the point.
Yes. Oh, yeah? Yes, please.
Yeah. So that's again related to Dr. Nisha's presentation and what Dr. Awa Madam had also asked. The second point is related to that. First is that she pointed out that she entered into a fellowship which was related to women who were after a break. So even we were surprised when we found, as a society, we found that the government offered some fellowships which are related to women, and the eligibility criteria was that you should be at least on a 2 years break, then only you can apply. So actually we found this as a very good scheme, and some of the women ophthalmologists actually applied for this, and they started doing it at different places. They got those fellowships also. So as a society also, if as a group, as a women's network, if we can think of, whenever we think of opportunities, we can plan some of our opportunities specifically for women who have been on a break, because those women are the ones who actually need those opportunities. And for them, it's a very big thing if they can actually come back into full force, and they can start performing again. That is one thing. And second thing, what I wanted to say was, when Dr. Awa Madam had asked why SICS and why not PHECO. So Madam, a lot of places we find here that, that since these are charitable institutions, and so that's why PHECOs are costlier. They're doing a PHECO procedure, and hence it's a non-PHECO procedure that is done. So we find a lot of residents doing non-PHECO procedures. That's what they have learned, but they have not learned PHECOs, and that is a big challenge here. So in fact, that's why we had been wondering that why not we ask our sponsors to sponsor so many meetings. Why not ask them to sponsor these trainings for the residents, which is more important than, we all spending so much on our conferences and meetings, etc. Because this is something which none of the sponsors do. But if we design programs or plans and collect sponsorships for them, then we can actually help these residents to learn phacoemulsification. So these are the two things that I was thinking. So Dr. Awa Madam, that's the answer to your question. And what I would like to know what you would like to say.
Right, Mohita, thank you so very much. But she is very confident, which is very important thing for a resident to do confidently all the surgeries and all the things. But still then, why she could not do the FECO, whether in that center during residency, there is no scope of doing the lab, wet lab also?
No, wet lab facilities are there at most places, ma'am, but they are not allowed to do it on human eyes because, again, it's the cost factor, probably.
I'm not telling about the human eye in the goat eye or cow's eye like that.
So those facilities are there at most places. Those are there. And I think they all do it on, yes, Dr. Nisha, you all do it on.
There are no, in our medical college, there is no wet lab, yeah.
Okay, you're not even a wet lab.
Yeah, we didn't have.
So this is something which has to be worked on. Dr. Susan, even if they do it on a wet lab, they feel more they would be more confident that
yes, confident will grow in that way.
But we didn't have it.
I want to focus us all and let, I believe that there's an opportunity for us to actually approach industry about this and talk to them about it. I absolutely agree. In fact, the American Society of Cataract and Refractive Surgery has asked me, how can we help women with their surgical skills? Is there an opportunity? And so there is interest in this. What I would like to just say quickly is I'm going to send you all a way to just use your iPhone to record your cases, because recording cases, I think, is critical. And I wonder if women ophthalmologists worldwide, if we had a video conference of showing complications and having people actually show their difficult cases and just talking through how we manage them as just women doing it with women, does that sound interesting to you? At all. And I'd love to hear from people who haven't spoken yet too.
Yeah, can I encourage Patricia Wade? We're waiting to hear from Dr. Patricia. We're waiting to hear from Dr. Farah Moti. I'd like to hear from the people who haven't spoken yet, please.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak. Yeah, it's Patricia Wade speaking.
Sorry, I mispronounced your last name, Wade.
Oh, no
Thank
problem.
you, Dr. Wade. Please go ahead.
Yeah, well, in Nigeria, we have a different, I think the training is slightly different, though it all aims at the same thing, to acquire very good surgical skills. The training in Nigeria, it's structured. When the residents come in, they start with the wet lab. We encourage them to start with the wet lab. This improves their confidence on improves their confidence in their surgical skills. And this wet lab, each one they do, it's monitored by a senior ophthalmologist and it's recorded. They have a register. And during our accreditation, these registers are gone through. And if the residents do it, the accreditation of the center can be withdrawn. So it is part of the requirement for accreditation that the residents do a wet lab and keep a record. And the second thing is that once they are confident on that, they come on, they transfer their skills on the real patients. And this is also monitored and it's done step by step. And unless they are very confident and skilled on the first step, they don't move to the second step. And once they are able to operate on patients under supervision, they are sent to, part of the training includes sending them to rural areas or to high volume centers where there are many patients and they're still being supervised and mentored there. And the consultants from the training center visits once a week to see their work and they record. And all our surgeries are recorded. And there's a room to record the complications of every surgery that you do. This will help you, especially the residents, to know, because if you record the complications or when the complications happened on the table, the supervisor or the mentor must have told you what has gone wrong, and from there you take correction in the next surgery. Incidentally, this last intake we had in my hospital, I had 12 residents and they were all females. But the only problem with the female is their maternity leave because they are young girls. Once they start improving on their surgical skills, they go on 4 months or 6 months leave. And by the time they come, you start them all over again. And this is one of the challenges we are having because they are still young, they are newly married, they want to start a family, you cannot stop them. So they have to start all over again after acquiring some skills. And then basically, I think that's the major thing we do in Nigeria here. We're still doing small incision cataract surgery. So I don't think any resident in any center is trained on phaco yet. Most of these training are done by those who are already fellows and they go elsewhere to acquire the training and come back. But the residents are only trained on small incision cataract surgery. Thank you.
Well, Patricia, thank you so much. I want to respect everyone's time, but I would love to stay on if are we allowed to keep having a few more comments, Famida and Mohita, is that okay?
Yes, I think that's okay. That should not be a problem.
I love this. And can I just say one thing about SICS surgery versus phaco? I think SICS surgery is amazing and it's an extraordinary skill set. So, you know, I was trained as a phaco surgeon, and then trained as an SICS surgeon. So I really don't want to see them as one better than the other. I really think I've seen some extraordinary outcomes from SICS.
Susan, you were in the governing council, ISMICS, in that meeting you were present. And now you see that SICS, only 2 millimeter incision. By 2 millimeter incision, SICS is, surgeons are doing SICS. So what is the difference between it is manual and it is instrument? That is the main difference. But how much easy it is for the poor person, for the surgeon also, as because they can learn it very, phaco learning is a long duration, but SICS is not that much. So everybody will not do the 2 millimeter incision, but 6 millimeter incision, also small incision cataract surgery. But nowadays, this is worldwide spreading small incision cataract surgery. And ISMICS have already formed the governing body for this, and all over the country, there are so many countries. Also, Susan was present in that meeting.
So let's talk, I would love to hear from Bayanda about South Africa. I don't even know if there you are.
I'm here. Thank you. So I think in South Africa, our resources are perhaps slightly different to many of your countries. We don't have wet labs that our residents can go and work at. So a lot of the training is done, you know, either you do it on pig eyes or you suture gloves, or their microscope skills are just very, very basic. So it would be great to have wet labs. And then a lot of the supervised surgical experience is done slowly on patients, done step by step. So that would be great. Our surgeons are exposed to both 6 as well as phaco, and that would vary depending on the institution as to where that is done. And they have exposure to a wide range of surgery. So by the time our residents have finished training, they've gotten quite good exposure, not only to cataract surgery, but also to glaucoma surgery, ocular plastics, retina, pediatrics, particularly strabismus surgery. So it's a very holistic type of training when you come out as the general ophthalmologist. There are very few, I think there's only 1 or 2 fellowship programs. So most South African surgeons go overseas for fellowship programs if they do want to do a fellowship.
Thank you very much. Our wet labs were not that sophisticated, by the way. I don't want you to think we have some incredible setup, but you can even use a small microscope that just to get their hands, hand coordination under the microscope is a great place to start. And I'd love to talk to you more about resources that we may be able to get to you, okay? So just reach out to me. We also wanted to hear from Dr. Ofori about your experience.
Thank you very much. So the picture in Ghana is similar to what's happening in most West African countries. But what I want to add is, there was one of the speakers who spoke and said that a wholesome surgeon is only by observation, practice, practice, practice. I think that in Ghana in particular, because we don't have wet labs, most of the skills you will get will be on outreach programs. And unfortunately, because we are women, we have young children, but the program is just for 3 years. So I'd like to encourage a lot of the residents to take opportunity during that time and go out into the villages, because you have high volumes there. And then there the consultants are patients to teach you cases, whilst another consultant sort of clears the numbers and moves very fast. So one of the ways I learned almost all my surgeries on outreach programs, okay? So I would encourage most of the young ones to look forward to that opportunity, because in the hospitals, there are fewer patients and you may not get the opportunity, the numbers that you want. But once you go over to the outreach programs, usually it will be on your spare time, it will be over the weekend. When you do that, you're able to get a lot of hands-on. Yeah, thank you.
I think that's really important. And I can't stress enough, as one of the teachers, if you invest in coming and having some hand-eye coordination, I will turn things over to you. But if the microscope's going up and down and you can't suture, it's really hard to trust your skills. So we have one more, Dr. Farah. I'd love to hear from you as well.
Thanks. Hi, Susan. So I'm Farah Moti. I'm a mom of 3. This is my eldest. She'll be 5 next week. So I think I'm one of the perfect examples of a woman in ophthalmology and trying to manage everything. I've got a 5-year-old, a 3.5-year-old, and a 2-year-old who may join us just now. And that's why things like this are really important. So just a few things I want to say. I used to run a district hospital department. And so that wasn't training registrars, that was training people who are interested in ophthalmology before they actually become a registrar. So what we start doing there is we actually train them to do eckies and 6. I used to train them doing eckies. I need to take the bike now. Okay. Sorry about that. And I moved over to 6 because I just felt that it was a better surgical outcome, especially when they're starting earlier. And it was interesting doing that because then obviously during your registrar time, it depends where you go in South Africa, but you're only allowed to start learning phaco in your 2nd year of training. But moving over to 6 gives the patient a better surgical outcome, but they're actually worse when it comes to learning things like corneal transplants because they just don't have that practice of suturing. And so you figure out these little gaps that they would have been better at if they'd done eckies before. And what I used to get my medical officers to do is suture a glove at the end of a list. And that's the little thing that's very helpful. But what I've found in my experience when I was training, though, which is something perhaps worldwide we could look at in terms of mentorship, is a lot of the male ophthalmologists don't necessarily get more training, but they're a lot more confident. And I think that becomes apparent when mistakes are made, and that's where the unconscious bias sets in. Where females are a lot more terrified to make a mistake or to admit a mistake or to talk about it, or, you know, to watch a video of surgery with someone to go through the mistakes, because there definitely is an unconscious bias that sets in then, like, oh gosh, how did you manage that? How, you know, why did you do that during surgery? Which I find happens less so with males registrars, and also because we have no fellowship programs in South Africa, I find a lot of the male residents have more support from private. So we've got a huge private practice sector here. Most people leave and go into private practice, and a lot of the male ophthalmologists are spending more time during their residency watching people in private practice, learning skills from them, getting support from them. And something I think we should think of in South Africa especially is perhaps to sort out a network of female private ophthalmologists that become mentors to residents, and perhaps you know, whichever female private ophthalmologists want to sign up to it are assigned a number of female residents who can reach out at any time and talk through the things. And then it's a safe space because you're not in the academic setting. So there's a lot less judgment of what's happening in that department or how things are going or how other people are doing. And so it's just a lot safer for them to talk about it, to learn their mistakes, and maybe, you know, if they have time, come and sit and watch. And sometimes it's not time if they're pregnant or if they have children or planning to do that. As you can see, it's not that easy.
So I'm going to,
those would be my ideas.
You've been able to have a consistent train of thought with having two children climbing all over you. You have such a focus, and this is such a skill set for a good surgeon. So, you know, it was just wonderful hearing your comments. Are you still there?
If I could just add one more thing to that, Susan, and it's I get a lot of comments and side comments, especially on Zoom. Being on the Ophthalmology Expo now, and lots of meetings, and people will side chat and, oh, the children, and they're so cute and stuff. And I need to tell people to get over that a bit. And we're almost 2 years into a pandemic, and when my husband, he's a management consultant, sits in meetings and somebody comes and sits on his lap, nobody bats an eyelid. And maybe it just as a medical profession, we're a bit slow to the party, but we should accept it. And it doesn't mean that I can do less or I'm not focusing as much. They're going to walk in and out. They're going to climb on my lap. They're not. But I find that doctors are a lot more reactionary to it than, say, the corporate world. And it's actually easier for me that this sort of thing has happened. And it's something also to encourage and say, guys, it's okay, get over it. Yes, they're climbing all over me. Don't be distracted by them. Listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Thank you. It really, you're right. This is our life and this is our reality. And can
I just say that I love that it's so authentic, and thank you for sharing that. And I love that your kids are there, because it's true. We all have these moments, and it's really real that we have to focus on how to teach and train in the context of the other challenges.
Right.
Can I just add something? Sorry, Susan.
Yes, please.
Just a small comment. Somebody was touched on a mentorship. My experience was as a junior consultant, just before I left and went into private practice, was we started to notice within the department that the female registrars or the residents were falling behind, in terms of surgical skills, the numbers, and not being successful in exams, having multiple attempts at exams until as a department, the leadership, the senior consultants sat down, and Dr. Fisser, who was a clinical head of department at that time, had a great idea to, specifically try and pair, mentors with mentees that look like. He started to pair them, specifically along race, gender lines, and interests. And just that small step, I think we saw great changes, because I think then they felt safer, to speak about some of the problems they were having and some of the weaknesses that they had. They got to spend more time with the mentor because they felt more comfortable with the mentor, and that gave them confidence. And I think that's something that other people can consider doing.
That's tremendous. I really am a strong believer in paying educators, and I think you're right. I would like to keep talking to everyone. I really think this is like we're just hitting on the surface of the iceberg here, and that there's so much depth that we can go further. I do have a survey about training, and I see as Famida pointed out, this unintended bias in training, but I think, how do we support each other as we go forward beyond training? And as everyone has pointed out, ophthalmology, surgery, medicine is a lifelong learning. And how do we get that for each other? So if people do have interest of having a video journal club that we actually show our complications and how we manage them, I'd be more than happy to take that project on. And if people want to just email me on that, and I'll do that through WOW's network. But I think we can learn from each other and support each other in these really challenging surgical situations. And I think what happens is we tend to, not just in surgery, but we can also talk as we're looking at these about situations that may evolve in the clinic as well.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you. That's a very good idea. I think we should take it forward.
And further to that, Mohita is going to be, we're championing a few surveys to help collaborate and synthesize all of our ideas that every single one of you have contributed. So if you have any further thoughts, please, we are hearing all of these comments about education, bias, how we can improve training, increase opportunities for training. Like, why can't your resident, Dr. Bambisa, come and spend 3 months with me in Vancouver, right? So let's figure out ways that we can work in our network, given limitations for funding. And I love the idea, Susan, of working with industry, because I really believe industry is here to help us in some ways.
So once we have the survey results, we are in a better position to convince the industry. And as Dr. Susan said, already there is interest, so we can start our talks with them already, and then take it further. Right.
All right. Well, I am so pleased. This was just a wonderful meeting, and there's so many pearls. I'm going to watch it again, maybe later this week.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming together. We really appreciate the opportunity to collaborate, and this is just the beginning. So please be active on your WhatsApp, and if you have ideas, don't hesitate. Please stay connected, because together we're going to be better.
So thank you, Dr. Bayanda. Thank you, Dr. Prabha, Dr. Mejola, and all others, Faith, and all others from Africa. It was, I think, a wonderful discussion and wonderful talks. And I think we are much, much more wiser on how to go forwards together in future.
Thank you.
Dr. Awa, any last comments from you? Awa, madam, your last comments. You're muted, madam. Madam, can you unmute yourself? Madam, can you unmute yourself? Hello? Dr. Awa, madam, can you unmute?
Sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry. Once again.
I'm telling that I would like to pay thanks to Susan first, as because she is the chairperson and she has conducted it so nicely. Moderator is Femida, but Susan has taken it, and really so nicely she managed to conduct this session, and everybody has give their valuable experience, personal experience, as well as how they need and ways forward for the skill of the surgical skill. So this is very important topic, and everybody has given their opinion. And I think this organization, that is how Femida and Mohita, they are two dynamic leaders of us, and we are behind them always, so that we can go forward for the real purpose, how to help the resident, how to help the person in which country. This zonal webinar, we have learned a lot from African countries, because initially it was not that much, but nowadays the women are coming up, and 44%, 50% like that, it is growing. So we are very happy to see. I am really feel honored to be a part of this meeting with the webinar, Zonal Webinar of Africa, and Dr. Prova, Dr. Baranda, Dr. all others. I don't want to mention all the name, but all the speaker and all the panelists, my heartfelt thanks to you, and thanks to our President Femida and Secretary General Mohita, and also Dr. Farah has spoke so nicely with the two Georgia. That is our life. That is the work-life balance. She has shown us how she spoke in, despite their argument, they are telling something, but still then she's speaking so nicely. Thank you, Farah. Thank you, Nisha, and thank you, Eli. Eli is my student. I feel proud, as because same here, and really it is so nice for me to thank you again. And with these few words, I'd like to conclude.
So thanks to Ophthalmic Society of South Africa, and Shelly, if you are there, she had helped us and put the whole program together. Dr. Bayanda and Dr. Majula, please convey our thanks to her.
And may we just hear from Dr. Chowsky from Kenya as well, just to say how we'd love to hear a few words of wisdom from this brilliant woman.
I just can't tell you how happy I am that you all actually came to Africa. And because, you know, I think staying outside in the Western world, you have no idea how things work in Africa. You have seen an average person earns less than $2 a day. Reaching a competent cataract surgeon is a challenge for many people. And I think, you know, some of these things, when we are focusing on common things, are more common. I think every ophthalmologist now, I think we have to find out ways of reducing the burden of visual impairment in Africa. Different ways. It doesn't have to be cataract surgery. There can be so many other things, like even reaching out to school children, correcting their myopia, reaching out to presbyopia women or presbyopia people, and helping. As long as we help people deal with their visual challenges, we would have done. But I'm extremely grateful for this webinar, and we have had really wonderful speakers. My heartfelt gratitude to all of them. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you everybody, and bye-bye. And thank you for your patience to be here for 2.5 hours.
One last photo. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Mohita. Oh.
Okay, bye-bye.
Love it. Thank you so much. Okay, take
Bye-bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye.